Iran's entire military intelligence apparatus just went dark. In a single coordinated strike lasting less than 4 hours, the United States Special Operations Command executed the most devastating blow against Iran's defense infrastructure in decades. What makes this strike different from previous operations is not just its scale, but what it targeted. The base they hit was supposed to be untouchable. Hidden deep inside the Alborz Mountains, protected by layers of tunnels, air defense systems, and camouflage so sophisticated that satellite imagery couldn't penetrate it, this facility represented the crown jewel of Iran's military research and development. It was the place where Iran's missile technology was being refined, where drone designs were being upgraded, and where the country's most classified weapons programs were being developed. And in one night, it's gone. What you're about to hear will shock you because it reveals something the mainstream media is refusing to acknowledge. This wasn't just a surgical strike on a military facility. This was a message that said to every adversary watching that the United States has capabilities that can reach anywhere, anytime, and that no amount of secrecy or underground fortifications can protect you anymore. The question everyone is asking in Tehran right now is simple. How did they find it? How did they penetrate the most advanced air defense systems in the Middle East? And most importantly, what does this mean for Iran's response? And how does it reshape the entire balance of power in the Middle East? Let me paint you a picture of what happened that night. It was just after midnight when the first team of Navy SEALs inserted into Iranian territory via helicopter. They came from the northeast, flying so low and so fast that Iran's radar systems, even the advanced Russian-supplied ones, couldn't get a clean lock. Behind them came the drone swarms, not the kind you see in the news that are big and loud. These were smaller, more sophisticated unmanned systems that were designed to be invisible to radar. They were equipped with electronic warfare packages that jammed Iran's communication networks and spoofed their air defense systems. While the drones were creating this electronic fog, the ground teams moved in. The base they were targeting, officially known to intelligence agencies as Site Alborz 7, sits at an elevation of nearly 8,000 feet in the northern reaches of the Alborz Mountains. It's the kind of place that doesn't appear on any official Iranian government map. It doesn't exist in any public database. The only people who knew it was there were the Iranian military and apparently American intelligence. What the SEALs found when they breached the perimeter was a facility that made clear just how serious Iran had been about its weapons development programs. Underground, spanning nearly 2 square kilometers, was a fully operational research and development campus. Inside those tunnels were laboratories dedicated to hypersonic missile research, next-generation drone design facilities, and testing chambers for Iran's latest generation of air defense systems. The facility employed over 300 scientists, engineers, and military personnel. Most of them never even made it outside the tunnels. The SEALs were equipped with precision explosives, the kind that don't just blow things up. They surgically destroy critical infrastructure. They methodically went through the facility, placing charges at strategic points. At the power generation station, at the water treatment plant, at the main server farms where all the research data was stored, at the ammunition depots, and at the laboratories themselves. What's critical to understand here is that the Americans didn't just destroy buildings. They destroyed continuity. All the research, all the designs, all the years of development that went into Iran's military programs, most of it was stored in those server farms. Yes, Iran had backups, but the backups were stored in the same facility. When those charges detonated, they didn't just destroy the hardware, they destroyed the data. They destroyed the intellectual capital that Iran had spent billions of dollars developing over the last 15 years. The explosions started at 0200 hours local time. They were perfectly synchronized. Charges in the main laboratory went off first, collapsing the ceiling of that section and burying everything inside under thousands of tons of rock and concrete. 15 seconds later, the power station exploded and the entire facility went black. 30 seconds later, the ammunition depot ignited, creating a secondary explosion so powerful it was detected by seismic monitoring stations over 100 kilometers away. By the time Iranian air defense crews could respond, the SEALs were already extracting. The helicopters that came to pick them up were escorted by F-22 Raptors and EA-18G electronic warfare aircraft. Iran's air defense systems tried to engage, but they were already compromised by electronic warfare packages. Multiple radar-guided missiles were fired, but none of them found their targets. The American planes simply jammed the signals or deployed countermeasures. Within minutes, the entire extraction team was out of Iranian airspace. The entire operation lasted 3 hours and 52 minutes from insertion to extraction. By the time dawn broke over Iran, the world had no idea what had happened. The Iranian government didn't issue a statement for hours. When they finally did, they claimed it was a minor incident at an industrial facility, nothing of military significance. But that story didn't last long. First, the international media picked up the seismic data. Geologists and military analysts immediately recognized the signature of a massive explosion. Then came the satellite imagery. By noon, American spy satellites had already captured photographs of the aftermath. The imagery showed a massive crater where the main facility had been, collapsed tunnel sections, and scattered wreckage across the mountainside. Word leaked out to media outlets, and within hours the Iranian government had no choice but to acknowledge the attack. But here's where the situation becomes truly dangerous. Iran couldn't admit the full extent of what was lost. They couldn't tell their own people, let alone the world, that their most advanced weapons development facility had been completely obliterated. So they did what they always do when they want to distract from bad news. They blamed the United States, they called for retaliation, and they began mobilizing their forces. What happened next is critical to understand because it reveals the strategic trap Iran is now facing. The Iranian military, already humiliated by the destruction of one of their most important facilities, began positioning missiles along their western border. Revolutionary Guard units started moving into position. Statements came out of Tehran about unprecedented retaliation. The rhetoric was heating up, and this is where the second part of American strategy becomes clear. The United States, having degraded Iran's offensive capability by destroying their research and development center, was now watching to see how Iran would respond. And here's the thing that nobody is talking about. By destroying that facility, the Americans have effectively blinded Iran's military development program for the next 5 to 10 years. Iran's ballistic missile program is set back by at least 5 years. Their drone program, set back by at least 7 years. All the hypersonic missile research that was being conducted at that facility, all of it gone. The scientists are scattered, the equipment is destroyed, the data is lost, and the institutional knowledge, the years of experience and expertise that existed at that facility, that's the hardest thing to rebuild. But the implications of this strike go far beyond just Iran's military capability. This strike is a statement to every nation that American Special Operations Command, working in conjunction with American intelligence agencies and the Air Force, has the capability to reach any target on Earth with precision and impunity. Israel is watching this operation and taking notes. The Gulf states are watching and feeling more secure. Saudi Arabia is watching and reconsidering its approach to Iran. China is watching and understanding that no amount of geographic isolation or underground facilities can protect you from American military technology. Russia is watching and understanding the same thing. Let's talk about what this means strategically in the Middle East. For the last 15 years, Iran has been the rising power in that region. It had backed militias in Iraq. It had supported Hezbollah in Lebanon. It had armed the Houthis in Yemen, and it had developed weapon systems that threatened Israel and American interests. But all of that was predicated on Iran having the military capability to push back against the United States and its allies. What this strike does is shatter that assumption. Iran's military planners have to now ask themselves a question. If the Americans can reach our most secret, most protected facility in the middle of the night, what else can they reach? If they can destroy our research and development infrastructure, can they also destroy our nuclear facilities? Can they destroy our command and control centers? Can they destroy our air defense systems? Can they destroy our ballistic missiles? The answer, from a military perspective, is yes to all of those questions. This is why Iran's response options are now severely constrained. If Iran launches a significant military operation against American interests or American allies, they're not just attacking a military target. They're inviting another round of strikes that could be even more devastating. They could lose their nuclear facilities. They could lose their military command structure. They could lose their leadership. And the Americans have just proven they can do all of that with precision and with virtually no risk to their own forces. This is a fundamental shift in the balance of power. For years, Iran had been playing a game of asymmetric warfare. They used proxies, they used terrorism, they used unconventional tactics to challenge American power without directly confronting American forces. But that game just became much more dangerous because the Americans have raised the stakes. They've shown that they can reach into Iran's heartland with impunity. And they've shown that they can do it with no warning and no mercy. Now let's look at this from Iran's perspective, because understanding how Iran sees the situation is critical to predicting what comes next. In Tehran, there's a sense of shock and humiliation. The government has lost face. They told their people that they had the most advanced air defenses in the Middle East. They told their people that they had facilities that were impregnable. They told their people that they had weapon systems that could deter American aggression. And all of that was exposed as false in a single night. The Revolutionary Guard, which is the most powerful military institution in Iran, has been deeply embarrassed. The Ministry of Defense is in crisis mode. Military planners are scrambling to understand how this happened and how to prevent it from happening again. But here's the truly critical part that very few analysts are discussing. This strike reveals a massive intelligence failure on Iran's part. How did the Americans know exactly where Site Al-Bor 7 was? How did they know the internal layout? How did they know where the critical infrastructure was located? How do they know the security protocols and the rotation of guards? The answer is that Iran has a serious intelligence problem. There are moles, there are assets, there are people inside the Iranian government, inside the Iranian military, who are working for American intelligence. And that's a problem that Iran can't fix with a military response. That's a problem that threatens the entire integrity of Iran's security apparatus. In the coming weeks and months, there's going to be a purge. People are going to be arrested on suspicion of being American spies. Officers are going to be executed. And the paranoia inside Iran's military is going to reach levels not seen since the early days of the Islamic Revolution. Let's expand our perspective and look at the regional implications. Israel is the big winner here. Israel has been extremely concerned about Iran's military development program, particularly Iran's ballistic missile program and its drone program. Both of those have just been set back significantly. Israel's military planners can now breathe a little easier, knowing that the Iranian threat has been substantially degraded. But Israel also understands something else. This strike demonstrates that when you have American support, when you're an American ally, when you allow American forces to operate from your territory, you get protected. And that's a message that resonates throughout the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, which has been trying to improve its relationship with Iran, is now reconsidering that strategy. The Saudis have been moving toward rapprochement with Iran, seeking some kind of regional accommodation. But this strike changes the calculus. The Saudis now have to ask themselves whether it's safer to align with Iran or align with the United States. The answer is becoming increasingly clear. The United States has just demonstrated that it has the power to project force wherever it wants in the Middle East, that it has the intelligence capability to locate even the most hidden targets, and that it has the precision weaponry to destroy them. That's a power that's difficult to resist or oppose. The Gulf Cooperation Council states, the smaller Gulf states that depend on American security guarantees, they're now feeling much more secure. The threat from Iran has been substantially reduced. Their relationship with the United States has been reaffirmed as valuable and protective. The calculus for these states is becoming simpler. Align with the United States, and you get security. Align with Iran, and you get strikes like the one on Site Al-Bor 7. Let's talk about what's happening inside Iran's military right now, because this is where things get really interesting. The destruction of Site Al-Bor 7 is not just a tactical loss, it's a strategic catastrophe. You have to understand that Site Al-Bor 7 was the heart of Iran's military modernization effort. The scientists and engineers who worked there represented Iran's best and brightest. They were the people who were going to take Iran's military into the next decade. Now, many of them are dead. The ones who survived are traumatized. And the question facing Iran's military leadership is simple. What now? Do they rebuild? Do they try to recreate Site Al-Bor 7 somewhere else? The problem is that rebuilding is going to take a decade and cost billions of dollars. Iran doesn't have billions of dollars to spare. The economy is struggling. Oil revenues are down, international sanctions are in place, and now they have to spend money rebuilding a facility that the Americans just destroyed. But there's another problem that's even more fundamental. If they rebuild Site Al-Bor 7, the Americans will just destroy it again. The Americans have proven they can do it, so why spend the money? This creates a permanent vulnerability in Iran's military strategy. Any facility that Iran builds, any weapons program that Iran develops, any military infrastructure that Iran constructs, the Americans can destroy it, and Iran can't stop them. This is a psychological blow to Iran's military that will last for years. The morale of Iran's military personnel is going to be affected. The confidence of Iran's military leadership is going to be shaken. The belief that Iran can defend itself has been fundamentally undermined. Now let's talk about the global implications of this strike. This is where it gets really significant, because what the United States just did in Iran, they can do anywhere. China is looking at this and understanding that Taiwan is even more vulnerable than it thought. If the Americans can reach into Iran and destroy a facility in the middle of the night with no warning, they can reach into China and do the same thing. The locations of Chinese military installations, Chinese weapons development facilities, all of them are potentially at risk. China's military planners are going to be rethinking their entire strategy based on what just happened in Iran. Russia is looking at this and understanding that American air superiority in Eastern Europe is absolute. If the Americans can penetrate Iranian air defenses, which are substantial, then they can penetrate Russian air defenses as well. Russia's military facilities in Eastern Europe, the ones that are supporting the war in Ukraine, all of them are now at risk. This is a message to Russia that American military power is unchallenged and that the cost of continuing its aggression in Ukraine is going to be higher than it thought. North Korea is looking at this and understanding that American precision strike capability represents an existential threat. Any facility that North Korea builds can be destroyed. Any missile that North Korea develops can be targeted. The regime security that North Korea has been relying on through military strength is now in question. Smaller nations are looking at this and understanding that aligning with the United States provides security and protection. Aligning against the United States invites destruction and defeat. This is a fundamental realignment of global power dynamics based on a single military operation. Let's talk about what's actually going to happen next, because the immediate aftermath of this strike is crucial. Iran is going to face pressure to respond. The people of Iran are going to demand a response. The military is going to feel obligated to do something to restore honor and credibility. But any response that Iran makes is going to be limited and carefully calculated, because Iran's military leaders now understand the cost of escalation. If they launch a major attack against American forces or American allies, they're inviting more strikes. And they've just seen what American strikes can do. So what are Iran's options? The first option is a limited retaliatory strike. Maybe a few missiles fired at an American military base in the Gulf, maybe an attack on an American ally like Saudi Arabia or the UAE. These are things Iran can do to show its people that it's willing to fight back. But these are also things that don't cross the line into full-scale war, because Iran knows it would lose. The Americans would respond with more strikes, and Iran's military would be systematically destroyed. The second option is non-military retaliation. This includes cyber attacks, terrorism through proxies, economic disruption, and other asymmetric tactics. Iran can use Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq, to conduct operations against American interests and American allies. This is something Iran has experience with. This is something Iran can do without directly confronting American military power. The third option is strategic patience. Iran can wait out the current American administration and hope that the next administration will be more accommodating. Iran can use the time to slowly rebuild its military capability, even if that rebuilding is slowed by the destruction of Site Al-Bor 7. This is a long-term strategy, but it's the safest one for the regime. What's actually going to happen is probably a combination of all three. Iran is going to make some limited retaliatory move to show strength. It's going to activate its proxy forces and its asymmetric capabilities. It's going to begin a slow process of rebuilding, understanding that it's going to take decades to recover from this blow. But here's what most people are missing in their analysis of this situation. This strike is not the end of American operations against Iran. This is the beginning. The United States has just proven that it can reach into Iran with impunity. Intelligence agencies now understand Iran's vulnerabilities. Military planners now know what's possible. The next operation is going to be even easier to execute, because the infrastructure that was providing protection for Site Al-Bor 7, the secrecy, the isolation, the belief that it was untouchable, all of that is gone. Some analysts are speculating that this is just the first phase of a larger campaign against Iran. The first phase was degrading Iran's weapons development capability by destroying Site Al-Bor 7. The next phases could involve strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities, Iran's ballistic missile bases, Iran's naval facilities in the Persian Gulf, and Iran's air defense systems. If that's true, then Iran is facing a catastrophic series of blows that could fundamentally change the political situation inside the country. And this brings us to the most important question. What about the people of Iran? What about the hundreds of millions of Iranians who are living under a regime that has failed to protect them, failed to deliver economic prosperity, and failed to provide basic security? When ordinary Iranians see that their military has been unable to prevent an American raid on one of its most important facilities, when they see that their government is unable to protect critical infrastructure, when they see that their military leaders are helpless in the face of American military power, what are they thinking? There are young people in Tehran and Isfahan and Mashhad who are wondering whether the government they live under is capable of protecting them. There are scientists and engineers who worked at Site Al-Bor 7 who have lost their jobs and their facilities. There are families of people who died in that raid who are mourning and asking why their government couldn't protect their loved ones. There are military officers who are confronting the reality that their years of training and preparation were insufficient to stop an American raid. The real impact of this strike is not just military, it's political, it's psychological, it's about undermining the legitimacy of Iran's government and the confidence of Iran's people in their leadership. And that's something that all the military retaliation in the world can't fix. You can't restore confidence in government through missile strikes. You can't restore morale through propaganda. You can't restore a strategic capability that's been destroyed. What makes this situation really dangerous is that Iran's leaders might not understand this. They might think that the solution is military retaliation, that showing strength through force is the way to restore credibility. But military retaliation is the wrong response to this situation. Military retaliation will only invite more American strikes. Military retaliation will only further degrade Iran's military capability. Military retaliation will only make the situation worse. The right response would be to acknowledge the reality of the situation, to begin serious negotiations with the United States and its allies, and to try to find some way to de-escalate the situation. But that's not what Iran's leadership is going to do. Iran's leadership is trapped by its own rhetoric, by its commitment to the ideology of resistance, by its need to maintain its image as a regional power. So Iran is going to respond militarily, and the Americans are going to respond to that response, and the cycle is going to continue until Iran's military is completely degraded. This is the tragedy of the situation. There's a way to avoid further conflict, but Iran's leadership is unlikely to take it. Instead, Iran is going to pursue a path of escalation that will only lead to more destruction and more suffering for the Iranian people. Now, as we're seeing events unfold in real time, intelligence agencies around the world are trying to understand the full extent of what was destroyed in this raid. They're analyzing the satellite imagery. They're talking to their sources. They're trying to figure out what this means for Iran's military capability going forward. And the picture that's emerging is one of catastrophic loss. The missiles that were being developed at Site Al-Bor 7, some of them will never be finished. The drone designs that were being perfected there, some of them will never be deployed. The air defense systems that were being tested there, they won't be operational for years. This is a generational setback for Iran's military program. And the question facing Iran's military planners right now is whether they have the resources, the expertise, and the political will to rebuild. The answer, based on Iran's current economic situation and the external pressures it's facing, is probably no. Iran is going to struggle to rebuild this facility. It's going to struggle to recreate the expertise that was lost. It's going to struggle to continue its weapons development programs. And by the time Iran has recovered, the military balance in the Middle East will have shifted even further away from Iran and toward the United States and its allies. This is what happens when you challenge American military power directly. This is what happens when you develop weapon systems that threaten American interests. This is what happens when you refuse to come to the negotiating table. You end up like Site Al-Bor 7, destroyed, eliminated, erased from existence, and it happened so fast that there was nothing you could do to stop it. No warning, no time to evacuate, no time to protect it, just destruction. The message that this operation sends to every adversary of the United States is absolutely clear. America has the intelligence capability to find you. America has the military capability to strike you. America has the will to use that capability, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. No amount of camouflage, no amount of underground fortifications, no amount of air defense systems can protect you from American military power when America decides to strike. This is the world we're living in right now. This is the reality of 21st century warfare. And every military planner, every government leader, every adversary of the United States is looking at what happened in Iran and understanding that they need to fundamentally rethink their strategy because the old rules don't apply anymore. The old assumptions about what's possible and what's not possible, they've been overturned in a single night. Before we wrap up, I want to highlight something that very few people are talking about. This operation required an incredible amount of intelligence gathering, surveillance, and preparation. American intelligence agencies have been watching Site Al-Bor 7 for years. They've built up detailed information about the facility, about the personnel, about the security systems, about the infrastructure. This information didn't come from satellites alone. It came from human intelligence. It came from sources inside Iran. It came from people who have access to classified information and who are willing to share it with American intelligence agencies. This is the part of the operation that's most damaging to Iran in the long term. Not just the physical destruction of the facility, but the proof that Iran's security apparatus has been compromised. There are people inside Iran's government, inside Iran's military, who are spying for America, and Iran has no way of knowing who they are. This creates a climate of suspicion and paranoia that can paralyze a government and an institution. Imagine being a senior officer in the Iranian military right now. You don't know who you can trust. Your closest colleague could be an American spy. Your subordinate could be reporting everything you do to the CIA. Your superior could be feeding information to foreign intelligence agencies. This is the environment that Iran is now operating in. And it's going to have effects that ripple through the military, through the government, and through Iranian society for years to come. This is actually more damaging in some ways than the destruction of the facility itself. Facilities can be rebuilt, equipment can be replaced, but trust, once it's broken, is almost impossible to restore. And Iran's trust in its own security apparatus has just been shattered. So as we look at the aftermath of this strike, as we watch how Iran responds, as we monitor the impact on regional security, we need to understand that we're looking at a fundamental shift in the balance of power in the Middle East. The era of Iran as a rising regional power is coming to an end. The era of American military dominance is being reasserted, and the implications of this shift are going to be felt for years to come. This operation tells us something profound about the nature of power in the 21st century. Military power still matters. The ability to project force, the ability to reach your enemies, the ability to strike with precision and without warning, this is what determines who gets their way in international relations. And right now, America has demonstrated that it has this power in abundance, and no one else does. If you found this analysis helpful, If you want to stay updated on how this situation develops, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be following the situation very closely in the coming days and weeks, and we'll bring you updates as more information becomes available. Please leave a comment below letting us know what you think is going to happen next. What will Iran's response be? How will this reshape the Middle East? What does this mean for global security? Your insights are valuable, and they help us create better content. Share this video with your friends and family if you think they need to understand what's really happening in Iran and how it affects all of us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.